Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back on this special pre-election edition of Illinois Rising, joined by Pat Hughes, co-founder of the Illinois Opportunity Project. And Pat, kind of an interesting development this past week, sort of out of left field, although it's something I've been calling for many, many moons, and that is Mike Madigan to release his tax returns. He's the most powerful politician in the state, has been for the better part of 3 decades. Everybody agrees that. They make a big deal, does the Chicago Press Corps and the Springfield Press Corps, about gubernatorial candidates and a Republican governor named Bruce Rauner releasing their tax returns. Why not Mike Madigan if he's the most powerful man in the state, if this is about transparency from the powerful elected officials? And so the issue that arose was actually a call for Rauner to release his tax returns for 2015, and he's previously released them, so this is not exactly in controversy. It's not like he's hid the fact that he makes tens of millions of dollars a year, and he's released his tax returns before. He's been positively transparent. Mike Madigan hasn't. So it's just kind of a curious issue to raise in sort of the 11th hour of this campaign cycle.
Yeah, and it's interesting how Steve Brown, Madigan's spokesman, is saying that, you know, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. In other words, Rauner should release his because he's an executive. And I mean in his governmental capacity, executive, but that Madigan shouldn't have to release his. You know, Dan, I'm not overwhelmed with the idea of politicians releasing their tax returns. I know that you are, but let's just say that for purposes of it, if one guy is going to do it, then the other guy has to do it, and the voters should have as much transparency as possible in that. So they should both do it. If one's going to do it, then they both should.
Well, and this is where the call from the press corps in this state, much like at the federal level with respect to the president's race, has been a bit disconnected, a bit conveniently to the advantage of the left power structure. That's the case with Madigan at the state level for certain. One of the reasons it's so important for Madigan, Bruce Rauner is transparent. Again, he's released his tax returns. We know he ran a big private equity concern. We know how he made his money.
Correct.
He files a statement of economic interest that lists his holdings every year, just like all the elected officials do. And that's fine. But he has, through the running for governor, got a full, thorough proctology exam with respect to his business interests. Stories written about different companies, commercials that Pat Quinn ran in 2014 about some of those companies and the investments that his firm made and the results of those investments and so forth. Mike Madigan, all we know is he's a property tax appeals attorney. And we know a little bit more. We know that his property tax appeals firm, essentially that's what his law firm is, represents some of the biggest commercial taxpayers in the city of Chicago. I mean, we're talking about taxpayers like Willis Tower, tens of millions of dollars in property taxes every year. He represents them. He writes the property tax laws. He controls, through his allies, the Board of Review in Cook County, and he saves them, say, a few $1,000,000, which is then redistributed over the entire property tax universe, commercial and residential, small guys. And he takes a percentage of that. Well, a 1/3 of a big number is a big number, and he's been doing it for 30 years. So it'd be nice to know, for example, and this has been an issue at the presidential level, if he enriched himself, if he is a multi-millionaire, which I believe he is, and he's enriched himself through his position in public office and through his inherent conflict of interest of writing laws that he then benefits from financially, as do his clients, then that should be known, and that should be discussed out in the open. And why he gets a pass on this from the press corps is a curious thing to me.
Yeah, no, and you said it very, very well, and your reference to the presidential election is spot on, right? Because look at Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. They were worth $150 million. They've never, created a widget. They've never distributed anything. They've never provided financial service advice or anything that would get you to have that type of wealth. It's all done through their connection to the political world, to the donor world, to their positions of authority and power. And Madigan is in that same position.
Right. So, and just on this point, I've said Trump should release his tax returns, just as the Clinton Foundation should get its 990 and other tax-related documents and filings in order so that the numbers actually work. Again, press corps focusing on Trump not releasing his tax returns, much less focus on Clinton Foundation documents that don't quite add up. All of this stuff should be available for public review, public scrutiny, when you're talking certainly about the most powerful office in the Western world, and secondarily, when you're talking about powerful offices at the state level as well.
Yeah, and Trump has done a good job at the presidential level saying, yeah, I'm worth a lot of money. I made a lot of money. I'm a successful guy. And Clinton, wants to attack him on that. And the Madigan-Rauner thing is exactly the same, Dan, because the narrative of the left and of Mike Madigan and the people he runs off that run for the offices across the state is that the Republicans are the party of the rich, evil white man.
Right.
And if Mike Madigan is one of those rich white men, really rich white men, which we suspect him to be, that cuts really deeply into that narrative, particularly because it also fits the narrative that you referenced before, that the only way he would get this is through his position of power.
Well, and here's the thing. The left always wants to play the game of what's your effective tax rate, Warren Buffett paying less than a secretary effective rate and all that jazz. Fine, you want to have that discussion? Let's have that discussion about graduated income taxes and loopholes and so forth. Fine. But let's also have the discussion about public figures who leverage their public office for monumental private gain. And on that score, Hillary Clinton and Mike Madigan, Hillary Clinton and Clinton Inc., that hillbilly house of cards they've been running for 30 years, and Mike Madigan, the conflict of interest law firm he's been running for 30 years, they're in the same camp. And I think both deserve scrutiny, and it seems like the press corps, generally speaking, is only interested in the effective tax rate discussion, not in the selling of government for personal enrichment. And that's really the discussion that is more important in terms of corrupting, because that's our office, not theirs.